Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first ever RIT Nerds podcast. Thanks for listening. And uh, today's episode, really all we want to do is kind of give you the background of who we are and why we got started. We've already recorded a couple episodes, but we figured before we drop those, we give you a quick introduction to who we are and what we're about. And so I'll get started and kick it off to you, Nate.
Yeah, hello, I'm Nathan Pocock. Live in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I'm the token Canadian of the group. Been in the fire service started in 2008, volunteering with the East Sioux Volunteer Fire Department. 2011, I got hired here in the city. Been here ever since, still working here. 2015, joined Canadian Task Force 1, Heavy Urban Search and Rescue in the city's technical rescue team. Same year, we started Prepare For, which is a firefighter training company that we run out of Vancouver here with 6 of us, teaching NFPA 1407 and Force of Entry and a few other things. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Huge passion for RIT. All sort of started with a series of events myself, and then tied into trying to get a bunch of questions answered early on in my career from events that I had to deal with and happening around me, and couldn't get them anywhere here. Found myself traveling far and wide to find the answers to the questions, and from there I started to build up the program itself so nobody else in the province would have to travel that far to get the answers like I did. That's me.
Cool, man. It's a pretty good introduction there. You're kind of the guy who got this whole thing going. So are you comfortable with giving a little bit of a background on how we stared this? Because you kind of connected the dots on us.
I would kind of blame Ron, but
sure.
Yeah, we're probably gonna go. We'll probably end up going around in circles.
I tried to go back to the beginning of the group message on Instagram, but I just got too distracted. It was taking way too long to scroll through all those messages to see who actually put that thing together.
Well, it all started when Ron asked me if I would keep helmets on or off, I think. Then we started chatting, then he added in Chad, and then me and you were talking separately, James. Or Jim. Fuck, it's going to take me forever, man.
We were arguing over the face mask, right?
Yeah. We were going over the face mask stuff. Yeah. And then because I was already having conversations with Ron and he added in Chad, I was like, well, I might as well just add in Jim.
Yeah.
And then, boom.
How about Ron? Why don't you go next?
Ron Burgess Jr. From Seymour, Connecticut. I've been a volunteer in Seymour for about 18 years now and started through the junior program. I grew up at the firehouse, basically. I lived across the street from it. My father became a chief through it. So I was kind of already fed what I wanted to be, or not that I knew of, but at the time. But about 5 years ago, I was hired at the Westport Fire Department where I worked full time. And probably about 7 years ago now, started a page many people may recognize on Facebook called Truck Floor Training with a couple of good buddies of mine. And that ran its course for me for a few years. At home, we got really heavily involved in RIT operations. We were doing 1-2 calls every other week or so for RIT for a good year or so. And I really needed to up my game into that aspect. Few years down the road, I found Nathan here and we got to talking and we figured, why is this information so hard to come across, or why can't we figure anything out or answer any questions we have? So coming through each other, we found Chad and then yourself, James. So, we decided to lock up, and I think the next couple of episodes will be great from what we discuss.
Cool. Thanks, man. All right, Chad, why don't you go next?
Hey guys, my name is Chad Zerfoss. I'm from North Carolina. I work for the City of Charlotte Fire Department full time. I've been in the fire service going on 11 years. Previous department was city of Charleston fire down in South Carolina for about 4 years in some combination volley time, part-time here and there. Currently, I serve as a lead instructor with truck company ops on the side. Got into to the RIT game, so to say, through a friend of mine who introduced me to Ron, who's on the podcast with us, and just some questions I had, and that sparked debate, and then sparked more questions than we had answers at the time, actually, and a lot of what ifs. How would this work? Could this work? Things of that nature. And then Ron actually introduced me to Nathan, the funny Canadian guy y'all were here. And then through Nathan, I want to say we all met James, but I had been following James's company before I knew him, Adapt and Overcome, because I bought one of their super awesome shirts. Shameless plug for James. They're very comfortable, by the way. So we all kind of came full circle and had the Facebook group messenger for a while. I think at one point in time, through Nathan's thought process, it was named Fake Palm Trees in Canada for whatever reason. There's a story there. We're going to have Nathan explain that one.
We'll have to go into that one on a later episode.
Yeah, exactly. Let him tell that. But it eventually trickled down into what we have now, the RIT Nerds, and then ultimately compiling for the Facebook page now. So it's been a work in progress, and it's been cool to see it grow. And it's definitely been cool to talk with these guys. I'm always trying to surround myself with dudes that are way smarter than me. So it's been good experience for me. So that's pretty much it from me.
Awesome, man. Thank you. All right. And my name's Jim Kenny, as Ron and Nate's like to say. Sometimes I go by James. I'm a third generation firefighter. I work in Fairfax County, Virginia, where I've been working for the last 12 and a half years. I'm a lieutenant there. And I've been volunteering for the last 11 years at Lutherville Volunteer Fire Company in Baltimore County, Maryland. And kind of a two-way start here. What got me introduced to you guys was just kind of starting up Adapt and Overcome training a couple years ago, and then putting some stuff out there, and then through Facebook and Instagram, just kind of going back and forth. What got me into training, and specifically into RIT, was a line of duty death we had at Lutherville in Baltimore County a few years ago. And a lot of you guys, if you're listening, I'm sure you're aware of it or you've seen it, but it's the 30 Dowling Circle line of duty death, Mark Falkenham. And it was the ATF did a video, fire modeling video of it, and it kind of became this, can't think of the good word, but just the forefront of the fire behavior and flow path movement and the close the door piece. And really, while we were waiting, because as you guys know, it takes forever, it takes a year plus for a NIOSH report or an internal report, plus these types of things to come out. And while we were waiting for this to happen, there were just so many questions going through our minds about what happened that night. You know, there was very few pictures that you could see. You could listen to the audio and then just the firsthand accounts from friends that were on the scene, and you're just, man, I don't understand what happened. And when the ATF put out the fire modeling, Adam St. John, when he came up and showed us that, it really clicked. And what that did for me is kind of showed me that, you know, the way we were training on RIT was not the way that the fire ground works. You know, we've been spending so much time training on RIT to be strictly a recon and air supply operation. And in this case, what we had was a fire mayday. You know, Mark was trapped by fire. And in my head at the time, I was thinking, you know, why is this? Why haven't we been talking about water as a RIT? And that's taken me down a long path. And obviously met you guys. Actually, Nate, we met a little bit, kind of going back and forth, arguing a little bit on the internet about an article I put up a few years ago with another line of duty death. But with that, we were able to start a good conversation. And then, you know, you introduced me to Ron and Chad, and this is where we're at now, a couple years later, and sitting here on a Friday afternoon trying to get this episode out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what our goal here is for our future listeners, if we have any, if not, it's just us.
Yeah.
But we want to have some key people in the fire service that either developed products and why they developed them, to people that have actually been in these situations that we seek information to find from. Have them on as guest speakers. And then from time to time, you're going to hear basically a kitchen table discussion between us. So, we hope our feedback or our questions could, make you think or make you ask a question and figure stuff out for yourself, or even approach us with it.
I couldn't agree more, Ron. It's, for a couple of years now, we've been having these discussions, and every now and again, a good FaceTime chat, I should say, group chat. And, Nate put out the idea, like, man, we have a good kitchen table discussion. Maybe we should record this and see, because I'm sure there's a couple people out there that have the same questions we have and would be interested into how we kind of play through the different answers that we bounce around off of each other to see what may work in which operation, and discuss our failures and discuss our successes. And
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing is what we've always been doing, right? We've been doing this for a couple of years now, unofficially. Like you say, we've recorded some chats and stuff just for our own records, but it's about having the conversations. I don't know if it's just the people I run into or me myself. I always find it interesting. There's some brilliant firemen out there that are almost scared to talk about RIT or go over RIT stuff because they feel they're not an expert in that area, or they're not all that stuff. Because typically when we do all this other stuff, it's like, well, you go get forcible entry training from Captain Morris because the man's forced more doors than anybody in the sun. RIT's kind of a funny phenomenon, because do you really want to get trained from a guy who's had 3,000 Maydays under his belt? Because how on earth did he get into 3,000 Maydays?
Right.
So it's kind of a weird thing, and nobody here is claiming to be an expert on anything. We're just trying to have the conversation so we can learn, because RIT's one of those funny things. It's hard to find somebody necessarily with tons of experience, like the Captain Morris reference I made with forcing doors, because if you're doing it right, you don't have a lot of those experiences. So it's one of those funny things. I think that's why it's so hard to find the answers to questions. It's because everyone's trying to figure it out themselves everywhere. So hopefully we can all generate those conversations to get the answers we're looking for. Right?
yeah, absolutely, man. And I think another thing too, there's a number of reports that have been put out in the last 10 years about RIT operations, not close call reports, but studies. And I think in our atmosphere here, we can bring to bear the lessons that different fire departments have learned and help them share their lessons and their recommendations with everyone, hopefully of our followers and listeners, and get that information out. And, same thing with the Facebook group that we put up, a place where people can come together and share some stories and share their files and find some files on these reports, and have those discussions and get them out in the open so the rest of us can learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, there's so much information out there that's only come out in the last 5 to 10 years. And even some of that is very hard to understand because we don't have the perspective of where it came from or how the operations were going that day. From some simple videos to firsthand reports or Mayday traffic we hear over the air, those reports really help tie in some questions we have. Take a look at Project Mayday. Thousands of entries, and even sorting through that, we still can't gather a ton of information. We can gather a ton of information, but it doesn't fill in all the pieces, for me at least. I understand what the questions they're looking for or the answers they're looking for. It's just, how did this all happen? I understand so much percentage of this equals so much percentage of that at this time of the day, but it doesn't really identify certain aspects of what I'm looking for and answers. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but in my head it does. So, but just having these simple conversations with you guys helps get some of those questions cleared up. Whether it's we should try this, we should try that, or that's not even relevant to what I do. We talk about the hose line and our last session there. There's a big difference between the four of us on what we do with that. So I think having this open forum, especially like the Facebook group, it's really going to help us move forward to somewhere where anybody could find this information.
It's like you say, the data's hard because even with Project Mayday, one of the great things it's finally done is we're starting to focus on the successes as well as
Right.
failures. Before it was all about line of duty deaths. That was the only data we were collecting with Phoenix study, with Tarver and Asheville study. Like all that stuff is fantastic, especially Asheville, which we've talked about before. But it's always been on the line of duties deaths. And Project Mayday, so we're so heavy focused on that RIT response. And Project Mayday's transformed that around for us to realize that 93% of internal rescues and stuff like that. And there's much more going on because we can see the successes too, much like Justin McWilliams is doing with the rescue survey and civilian rescues. Rather than focusing on civilian deaths, yearly death tolls, also focusing on the successes and finding out what worked. Like the frustration all four of us have had with the recent through the floors that have happened. One in Baltimore and the other one was it LA County, LA cities? Oh no, it was outside of LA. But fantastic outcome. 4 guys went through and they pulled them out. Sounds like it went seamless and perfect. But all of us are going, well, how did they rescue it? How did they respond? What was the technique they used? What made it work flawlessly and perfectly in the rescue? We can't find that data. So it's going to be nice to hopefully be able to start finding out that data to know what's working for everyone out there so we can start applying that across the board so we don't all have to figure it out when it's our bad day.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, you guys feel good for ending number 1 right now, and we'll get number 2 and number 3 posted up shortly after this one, so our followers don't have to wait that long. And
perfect.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We just want to let you know that the RIT Nerds podcast and especially episodes 1, 2, and 3 are supported basically by ourselves and our individual training groups and pages. So, Ron, if you want to give your handles, and then we'll go through each of ours.
Yeah, if you guys want to reach out, ask questions, maybe get on there one day, you can find me at RIT_ops on Instagram. Just send me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I see it.
Nate?
Yeah, likewise, everyone wants to ask questions. If you're on the West Coast and you're like me and you find it hard to find anybody to talk to that's within 100 miles of you, you can find me either on Facebook, prepare4_rescue, or on Instagram at prepare4_rescue_.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in following my page, Adapt and Overcome Training, you can find us on Instagram, Adapt Overcome Training, and on Facebook, Adapt and Overcome Training. You can reach out on either of those to any of us. If you have any questions, shoot us a message. Like Ron said, if you have a good story and you think you would have the courage to come up on here and talk with us and go on the air, we'd love to have you and to sit down and talk with you. So, yeah, we'll end it there, and everybody have a good afternoon.